unofficial conclusion that 75% of Americans say they don't believe.
The idea that a person could take this piece of junk and hit a moving target is ludicrous.
Was Oswald a solitary assassin or a well-played patsy?
I positively know nothing about this situation here.
New evidence of not just one assassination attempt, but 3.
The Kennedy assassination remains, over 4 decades later, one of the great untold stories.
Tantalizing clues about a mafia hit, a government cover-up.
We have smoking gun documents from the CIA.
And a presidential scheme that allowed it to happen.
Broadcasting live from the dark and cold dungeons deep beneath the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prepare yourselves to be taken away into another dimension as we now have control over your thoughts, fears, and perspective of the unexplained world you dare not speak of. With your hosts, Lindsay Knight and Michael Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the gates to the paranormal and beyond.
Broadcasting live from the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is the Paranormal and Beyond. When it comes to the biggest conspiracies of all time, there is absolutely no doubt that the JFK assassination echoes louder than the fatal gunshots which rang out on Daley Plaza in Dallas, Texas on November 22, 1963. Although the government's final assessment and investigation would have us all believe that the lone gunman by the name of one Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, time, as well as new evidence, is leaning towards a condemning plot within our own government itself in the execution of our 35th president. In a moment, renowned author and former special agent of the Justice Department, Dr. Walt Brown, who is in fact one of the most knowledgeable figures when it comes to the investigations and details surrounding the JFK assassination, will be joining us on the program to give us an in-depth view on his extensive research into one of America's darkest days in our history. So get ready, because Dr. Walt Brown and the JFK assassination is all straight ahead when we turn right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
Your ticket to the unknown is at KnightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at KnightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. Knights with a K, ParanormalResearchSociety.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Knights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at KnightsParanormalResearchSociety.com, you're going to believe. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight, for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knights Paranormal Research Society.com.
Just because you've seen it in the news doesn't mean it's real.
So you're telling me you got physically attacked by a ghost?
Like, I can tell you right now, I believe in the paranormal more than I believe in our government.
There are so many mysteries out there that are still yet to be explained.
You folks have some of your facts wrong, and you just keep talking about generalities.
With all due respect, sir, you have not brought anything to the table to prove us wrong.
This is the Paranormal and Beyond, and it's your show. Call us at 731-1230. Here again, Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight.
Welcome back to another brand new edition of the Paranormal and Beyond. But first, be sure to check us out at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, where you can link up to all the past shows by simply clicking on that archive link above. That's Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Ever want to be an actor? Well, here's your chance. Log on to HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Again, that's HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Special shout out to all those listening worldwide through the KLAV1230am.com website, and all of you driving around in the Vegas Valley listening.
Let's give a special shout out to John Kelly and his girlfriend Rachel, who said they would be listening.
Oh yeah, hopefully they are. I'm your host, Michael Knight, joined alongside of me.
If we gave them the shout out and they mentioned it, we know they were listening.
Lindsay Knight and Jessica Johns of Wartime Paranormal, and the guy who keeps talking over there.
Sorry.
David Gleason.
It's your turn.
Oh, the EOG Sports Hour, which can be heard here Monday through Friday from 10 to 11. And also joining us live in the studio is Rex Williams from Sci-Fi's Destination Truth. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me here.
How are you all doing?
I'm doing great, Michael.
You know, I'm just busting your cojones.
I know.
Well, I hope everybody had a good weekend, and we're about to get into a very controversial topic which has echoed throughout time. Everybody seems they know who did it. Is it the mafia? Is it, the government? Is it the CIA? Or could it be all of the above? So let's get into our main topic, because our special guest, world-renowned author Dr. Walt Brown, was a former special agent for the Justice Department and also earned his PhD in history. Walt has spent years exhaustively indexing, cataloging, and researching all of the known evidence in the assassination of President Kennedy. His global index to the assassination is considered the definitive researcher's tool, where he is also the author of The Warren Omission, People vs. Lee Harvey Oswald, Treachery in Dallas, and The Guns of Texas Are Upon You. He is the editor for many years of Deep Politics Quarterly, a magazine about the assassination with contributors from researcher communities from all over. Dr. Walt Brown released his latest masterpiece entitled Master Chronology of the JFK Assassination, which has over 32,000 pages and is by far ranked as the #1 bestseller on Amazon, Kindle, Nook, and iTunes. He is also a regular commentator on radio and television regarding his work, as well as being a former board member, plus a regularly featured speaker at COPA conferences worldwide. His knowledge of the JFK assassination details is by far undoubtedly unsurpassed. The Paranormal and Beyond would like to welcome to the program Dr. Walt Brown. How you doing, Walt?
It's good to be with you, and it's a wonderful opportunity to share some ideas with your audience. I appreciate it.
All right, first, let's get down. 32,000 pages. I talked to you before this. That's like the Encyclopedia Britannica. And so your knowledge is very vast and very thorough in what you do. First of all, how did you get into this?
It was almost an accident, really. Someone about 15 years ago prepared a very brief chronology, and I took a look at it, and I hate to say it to the person that did it, but it was loaded with mistakes. And I had worked with a tremendous researcher in Texas named John Harrison, also known as Jay Harrison, and he had done incredible genealogical research, and he had been a Dallas police reservist on November 22nd. And he had tremendous insider insights. He had literally millions of pages of documentation that he got from FOIA, from all imaginable sources. And he became very sick in 2003, and he died in 2005. And I promised him that I would finish what he started, and that's really what the chronology came down to, because I felt as if we got to start at the very beginning. That's why there's 3,000 pages before the shots are fired. Bring in all the players, introduce them. This is who they are. This is what they're about. This is what the Kennedy family is about. This is what John Kennedy's about. Then we got 3,000 pages of shots being fired. We got 3,000 pages of what the Warren Commission did and didn't do. And then there's the final book before the appendices of what independent researchers have done. And the one thing that is undeniable is that the independent researchers have done far more in the search for truth than the government ever did.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Let me ask you a question. With the Warren Commission reports, now it does, because I know there's so many pages and there's so much stuff documented in there. Was this all based on fact, or was because I know it does talk about the mafia as well in the Warren mission? I mean the reports as well.
In the Warren Commission report.
Yes.
The closer you get to the mafia would be the House Select Committee. And when I heard Michael making the introduction, and it was a wonderful introduction, thank you, he said, the government has told us all along that it was one man, Lee Harvey Oswald, all alone. And actually what the government told us is in 1978, the government told us it's a probable conspiracy. And they seem to fall back on the mafia because the mafia is amorphous. Who are they? What do they look like? Castro Cubans, you can pretty much tell what they look like, and most people know who they were back in the day. But the mob, that's a tougher, because it's not the leaders. It's not Marcello or Trafficante or those people. It's their soldiers, and they're faceless people. But the Warren report itself was a carefully crafted collection of rubbish.
Well, also, when it came to finding the head for the Warren Commission, wasn't Lyndon B. Johnson involved in that? He was the one who appointed.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider in that. Here's a Democratic president appointing 7 politicians to investigate a murder, which is like rounding up 7 investigators to run for office. It doesn't work. They're not the right people. And of those 7, 5 are Republicans or 2 are Democrats. And I would defy any of your listeners to call in with information saying, wait a minute, there was once another commission or a board or a panel or a Senate committee or a House committee where a sitting president made the committee lopsided with the other party. It just doesn't happen. So he was already laying it off. And you can actually hear Lyndon Johnson on tape telling these guys, listen, you don't have to do anything. Just sign off on what the FBI has already done. They've already got a report in progress, and when you get it, sign off on it. That's it.
Okay, you have the FBI, CIA, and all these other government, offsprings. Who was mainly in charge of the investigation? Although a lot of them had their stuff to throw in, a lot wasn't even submitted in the report. What
seems to be coming to the forefront now is that, first of all, the Warren Commission is a misnomer. It was the Dulles Commission. I did a number of statistical matrices in Warren omission, and the evidence is overwhelming. Earl Warren was an accidental tourist in that event. He showed up in the morning, said, how'd he do, and left for the court. That was it. The staff lawyers, and people need to see who these people were. The staff lawyers channeled information, and unfortunately what they were channeling was what they were given and, in a sense, told, this is what you're getting. Deal with it. The FBI reports that were given to the Warren Commission, in many cases, are almost criminal because they tell you nothing.
Okay, there's a lot of theories out there, okay? A lot of people say John F. Kennedy was just dabbling in too much that he shouldn't. He spoke too much. He was dating who he shouldn't, and he was very an outspoken president. There's also theories that he was trying to bring back the greenbacks, which Abraham Lincoln tried to do, and that pretty much was his ultimate assassination because of trying to change the whole dollar and going behind the Fed's back. That there's also talk that he tried to do some stuff like that. We all know John F. Kennedy was very flamboyant as a president itself, almost like Obama today, and taking selfies and all that. But the main point is that he was involved, not only him, his brother, Robert Kennedy,
Absolutely.
was dabbling in a lot of mob ties type of thing. And not only that, trying to take down the CIA.
Well, they were undoubtedly a dual presidency, Robert and John, because Robert was really the point man. John would say, listen, we got a problem. And Bobby would pretty much say, all right, here's the answer. As far as the greenbacks, as you described them, I think that's an overstated concern because, as you said, Lincoln started it, and that was to pay the bills. And they were issued in denominations of $2, $5, and $100. And they had red seals on them, unlike the modern bills. And I've heard any number of people say when John Kennedy was shot, they disappeared. And that's not true. They were printed until 1971. And the at the time, I think $600 million of those what were called United States notes, not Federal Reserve notes. $600,000 of them were printed in 1963, and that's up against the $78 billion in Federal Reserve notes. Now, today, that's chump change. Every month, the Federal Reserve prints $85 billion, which is not backed by anything. And that's scary in itself.
Yeah, it's basically like ketchup and mustard.
Could they have had a tie in that personally? Because I mean, the fact that he did print all this money, and the Federal Reserve, of course, they make their money off obviously nothing, but
interest.
They make their money they make their money by brokering their money into the banking system, and it's a fraction of a cent on $10. But when you do that in terms of $4 trillion a year, it comes out to a lot of money.
Right.
But the real squeeze on Kennedy came from the military, because they would have shot him in the Situation Room when he said, no, we're not going to bomb Cuba, we're not going to invade Cuba, we're going to find a peaceful solution to this crisis. Then they got angry because he dismantled the missiles in Turkey, which were sitting ducks anyhow. Then he gave the American University speech, which was the olive branch, the ultimate olive branch in modern times from a president. Then he lost his son in August 9th of '63. And people tend to overlook that fact. He was devastated. And at the time, he's signing letters to parents whose children are being killed in Vietnam. And he came to the conclusion, I don't want to sign any more letters about dead children. And I'm sure you were NSAM 263 began the withdrawal of troops from Vietnam in October of '63 to begin January 1 and to be completed by the following January 1. And then 4 days after Kennedy is killed, that 263 is superseded by NSAM 273, and here goes Vietnam, right to the top of the charts. And the military contractors, they never had it so good.
Here's the question, all right. A lot of people who've looked into this also know Cuba was a big deal in this. All right, we had the CIA working with the mob, unbeknownst to the presidency, trying to take out Fidel Castro. Okay, they attempted 17 times and failed. We're talking about the CIA, and these are your supposedly MI hit squad, which failed 17 times. Okay, so now what happens is that you have the Bay of the Pigs, which was just a failure and looked bad to the presidency. So there's a plan that comes up behind the CIA's back and the mob, which they've been trying to do for so long, that they were going to get the third man in the hierarchy of the Cuban presidency, and which was the general, to pull a coup d'etat and overthrow the government. Now, this sort of kind of leaked to the CIA members and the mob, and a lot of people are saying this is why the mob put the hit out, because it just looked bad to them.
Not to mention that the mafia is also the one that helped Robert Kennedy.
Well, not only that, they had their plans to launder money. Okay, Cuba is a big money maker, and you know the government, even today, are the biggest drug dealers, no matter what you think. So is there a significant tie when it comes to Cuba about its assassination?
Well, the second option that you mentioned about an insider staging a coup, the documentation on that, unfortunately, is very thin. And it's almost a personal memoir, and sometimes people's personal memoirs, not what's recorded on tape, but what they want you to hear, is a little bit distant from reality. And I think the operative fact we have to deal with is that a few weeks ago, we sat through the media blitz telling us Oswald killed Kennedy 50 years ago today. And while that was being said, Fidel Castro was having a nice dinner and a nice Cuban cigar, and he's still alive. And if there were, and I know it's in the neighborhood of 17, with all of these attempts at Castro, CIA and Mafia, if they failed 17 times, how is it that they were 1 for 1 when they went after the presidency? It's a question that clearly needs an answer. As far as drugs, they did tremendously in Cuba, but Vietnam was the golden triangle of heroin. Heroin became an issue in the American government in 1964, and my DOJ experience was in the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and we saw it, we knew it, Vietnam.
Let me ask you a question, because
Sure.
It being, like you said, a dual presidency between Robert and John, of course, because they were going back and forth. What, with everything that they were getting into, because they had their hands in everything,
Yes.
pretty much. So, I mean, was it just a matter of time before one of them was, and of course they were both assassinated, but was it just a matter of time?
More than likely, yes, because, and this relates, I want to touch on 2 points you just said. Number one, sure, they were making too many enemies, and I've always believed that when an outsider, which is what Kennedy was essentially in terms of the White House, Nixon would not have been an outsider had he won the election. George W. Bush was not an outsider because his father was president. But when a real outsider, Jimmy Carter, Obama, when they get elected, I'm convinced to this day that they get a little bit of a briefing. This is the White House. This is where you're going to live. You're going to sign the laws, but I can't tell you who we are. But there's the we tells them, don't go outside of our judgments, because if you're thinking about doing that, you should watch the Zapruder film a few times. And there's just the unstated, we're in charge, you get the perks to the president. Now with Robert and John, when John was killed, and people throw this at me, and I'm sure they've given it to Michael and you, left and right. Why did the Kennedys go along with the Warren Commission report? And the answer is simple. By the time John Kennedy was buried on Monday, Robert Kennedy had become the political head of that family/dynasty. And if they had come out and said, sure, it's a conspiracy killed my brother John, that would have alerted the voting public, well, if a conspiracy killed John Kennedy, why should we vote for Robert? He's only going to get killed too. And of course, that's what's happened.
Okay, it looks like it's starting to paint a picture like either the government's involved and they were hiding something. Okay, because of Kennedy's assassination, and like I said in the intro, it echoed out through time. And I'm sure presidents now look at that as like, don't mess around because this could happen. And a lot of people out there, they don't believe in false flags. What the government, how they create a problem, the solution, and the end result, they don't believe in that. So when you talk about Obama and all these people coming up in office, they are bound by they're basically the puppets now.
It's a matter of a simple equation. Does anybody out there think Barack Obama told the NSA to listen to everybody's phone calls? Of course not. They just did that on their own. They don't answer to him.
Everybody here is like shaking their head. No,
he has. I mean, he does have. Like, it's funny because Mike and I have talked about this in the past. That when somebody just before they take office, they really don't know what's going on, behind the walls. And
correct.
No, here's the thing. Everybody is wondering, and they're always, getting mad. Why does a president going to be elected who's out there as a candidate first goes on the stump and starts preaching, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. But the minute they are indoctrinated into the presidency, they abide by what the last president does. Making thus Obama a copy of Bush because they get disclosed the information and the rules they need to abide by.
The three words that headlined the year 2008 were, yes, we can. And
then it was like, no, you
got
can't.
Inside the wall, exactly. He was told, no, you can't.
Right?
Exactly. And it would have been the same with John Kennedy, but John Kennedy felt he was tougher than a lot of them.
No, but
here's
the thing. Well, okay, we're going back almost 50 years. It was that the United States really skewed into a tyrannical government. I mean, back then you had some sort of innocence, and when that changed, I guess the government took it like nobody will know, and now we can even step on the United citizens' neck even more.
Absolutely.
And
if we can and they succeed,
get
away with removing the president, we can get away with anything.
Well, the government's getting away with everything now.
Yeah, we can take a situation where 19 Saudi Arabians hijacked 4 aircraft, and we replied, okay, we're going to get even. Let's blow the hell out of Iraq.
Well, here's another thing. The United States hijacked 4 aircraft and rammed into our own buildings, even if that makes sense. Hey, Dr. Walt Brown, we have a caller for you, Jones, on the line. How you doing, Jones? Welcome to the program.
Hello.
How you doing? What's your question?
I'm a little sick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. My question to this guy was, I was wondering how much his speech that he gave in April of '61 about secret societies and secret oaths might have had a impact on his death. I think that and the George Bush speech about the NWO are probably the two biggest things that presidents ever said.
Well, certainly Kennedy's comments about the secrecy and transparency in government and all that, it's a factor. But that's not why he was killed.
Right.
That was just something that was part of the dessert, so to speak. Getting rid of the $600 million in real government money is part of the dessert. The fact that a president would dare to challenge the secret societies, and there are countless of them. Those are all part of the dessert. To me, the appetizer was the difference between war and peace. Kennedy was going after peace, and the generals wanted war. And in all of these discussions, mafia, CIA, Castro, military, there is absolutely no room for Lee Oswald as the shooter, the sniper. He doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Thank you for your call, Jones.
For Lee Harvey, for Oswald, when he was arrested, now he was a patsy.
He denied it, though.
Well, no, here's the definitive question, okay? Everybody needs to look at this. If you're going to do something, you're always going to want a reward for it. Harvey Lee Oswald did not even claim to kill the president. You would think as a John Wilkes Booth who would claim this for notoriety. He complained and said, no, I did not. I'm being set up. Now, from my understanding, he thought he was doing something, even if he got coerced to this, doing something for the Russians. But because he was left high and dry, he felt kind of lost. And to bring up Jones's question here, when he talked about the NWO, I think the definitive moment the NWO and the Illuminati made its first appearance was during the JFK assassination. This is what defined and basically spun out where you have the real, innocence of freedom skewed. And now look what we have today. I don't know what's going on.
It's certainly not anything that would remind us of John Kennedy today.
No, absolutely not.
But in terms of Oswald and Booth being something close to my heart, he fires the shot. He jumps out of the booth, breaking out of the president's box,
ankle.
breaking his leg on the way down. Actually, when he fell wrong. But he yelled, "Sic semper tyrannis," which is, "Thus it is to tyrants." Some people translate it as "death to tyrants," and it's on the Virginia state flag. Oswald, on the other hand, denied everything. And the Warren Commission could only ascribe a motive to him that he wanted to go down as famous in history. If you want to go down famous in history, and they put you on TV at 11 o'clock at night on November 22nd, you look right in the camera and say, "I shot the man, and here's why."
Now, there was a lot of key players that was involved. Was Jack Ruby and Oswald, were there any ties between those two at all in Sirhan?
I can't speak to the Sirhan issue.
Well, I can tell you,
I don't know of any connection.
Here's one thing about Sirhan. Okay, here's the labeled killer in Robert Kennedy's assassination. All right, one thing they found out about Sirhan is that even when he was in prison, he was receiving monthly checks. These checks were coming from the Teamsters Union, and at that time, the Teamsters Union was ran by the mafia, aka what you put it.
Sure, but again, I can't speak to that, and I don't even have any evidence about what Sirhan was or wasn't doing. My focus has always been John Kennedy.
Okay.
All right, with Kennedy and all this happens, okay, you have basically all these people who are tied into the mob after that. You have Jack Ruby, who gets arrested and goes to prison, who basically denies, he says, "I'm not going to say what this is about." All right, and he takes it to his grave. Later on, coming up to our century now and what's going on, you have the FBI try to run a sting where you have this mafia boss who's in prison. And what happens, they're doing something, this has nothing to do with the Kennedy assassination or anything. They're trying to just get incriminating evidence. But what happens is that one of these bosses say, "Yeah, we take him out." Now,
yeah, he let something slip.
Yeah, and now if we look at the evidence and what's going on, do you think the government will be like, we had nothing to do with it, and try to pass it off to organized crime at the time when we know the biggest organized crime syndicate right now is the United States government?
Yeah, in other words, you're asking me, do I think they'll do that?
Yeah.
And my answer is an absolute no. They can never, the United States government can never open Pandora's box. I was having dinner with Richard Belzer one night, who's written extensively on Kennedy, and people were coming over to him and asking questions, and he let me field a couple of questions, and two attorneys, two 40-ish female attorneys said, "Why doesn't the government just come out and tell us the truth?" And I said, "Okay, imagine this. You're celebrating your 50th wedding anniversary with your husband, and he tells you he had multiple affairs during your first honeymoon. How do you feel?" She said, "I'd be shocked." And I said, "Yes. And the American public would be shocked. And Wall Street would be shocked. And consumer confidence would be shocked. And the world would look at us and say, you're a banana republic. Your president's killed and you hide it for 50 years? So that Pandora's box is never going to be opened. There are documents that are supposed to be released in 2017. It's not going to happen. They've been hedging. They've been hedging on holding the release back for the last 3 years, and they will hold them back if they're a threat to national security.
But Walt,
I can't imagine one sheet of paper in 2017 that would be a threat to national security based on something that happened in 1963.
But
if Oswald did it.
Here's the thing. It wouldn't be a threat, but by keeping it in closed doors would continue to the government to keep playing these games with the American citizens. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there.
From 27 angles, not just covering up 1963.
I think the first one was the Roswell incident, and then after they found out it worked, now they just keep hiding secrets. I mean, those who have the open-minded mentality and can look at stuff with, as far as you doing thorough research and look at things dead on, can see there are things wrong. But our society now are being ignorant. I'm sorry out there if people who are ignorant are getting offended, but you are. It's because the truth is, it looks like a lie to them.
Well, you only have to watch Jay Leno twice to know that the man in the street is ignorant.
Oh, yeah.
Sadly. I've seen him go out there and say, "Can you tell me who the vice president of the United States is?" And some people said Bin Laden.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, we're not teaching our children. We're not teaching them history. And if they get to JFK, it's a paragraph in a textbook saying that John F. Kennedy was shot and killed as he rode in a motorcade through downtown Dallas, Texas, period. It may add a Russian defector and communist, which he was not. Lee Oswald was charged with the crime but killed before he got to court. Now, a little while before, you said Oswald felt like he'd been left to hang out to dry.
Yeah.
One of you said it. The last phone call that Oswald attempted to make was to a higher-up in military intelligence in North Carolina. When he gave the number to the Dallas operators, they handed it to men in suits who were at the Dallas police station around the clock. They did a reverse lookup. They knew who the call was going to go to, and they said, "Don't put it through." And the operator said, "It's ringing, Mr. Oswald. It's ringing. It's ringing. Well, it's still ringing. We'll try it again later." And the next thing Oswald knew, he was just about to shake hands with Jack Ruby. But his last phone call, in absolute desperation, he was reaching out to a higher-up in military intelligence, not the CIA, military intelligence. And that's two different stories. Military intelligence is far more effective than the CIA will ever be. And everything you need to know about the CIA is contained in the fact that the main building at the CIA is the George Bush Center for Intelligence. And that's the ultimate oxymoron.
Yeah, dang those bushes,
Next to the J. Edgar Hoover FBI building.
But look what happened throughout time. Because of that getting through, I mean, to this day, we have situations that go unnoticed, even though they look fishy or clammy.
It's not only that. It's the fact that you and I are on the air right now, talking about something that we know to be, at least in the ballpark, of fundamental truths. It wasn't Oswald. It wasn't Oswald by himself. There were plotters, and there was a cover-up.
And
we know that.
Yeah,
we know that.
And this was a third attempt or fourth attempt that was planned.
Fourth that we know of.
Yeah, that was planned. The one that a lot leaked out was the Chicago incident, and it mimicked the same thing. A guy with a rifle on a high building.
Yep, and an ex-Marine with a rifle in a high building. And supposedly the informant that blew the whistle on that case was a man named Lee. And that's all they knew.
I can't see how the American public can put this together. Have we been that
It's funny
ignorant?
because the American public is not coming home after a long day's work, having their dinner, and sitting down reading documents. They don't do that.
No.
They don't do it. They wait to see what winds up on the book stands and what's out there. Bill O'Reilly killing Kennedy. He didn't write the book. He'd be hard-pressed to say which Kennedy was killed. His book on killing Lincoln was so poorly done that Ford's Theater would not sell that book in their museum. But that's the one you see when you walk into the bookstores, because the publisher printed hundreds of thousands of them, which makes it, without one being sold, it's a bestseller, simply because of the production numbers. And once it's a bestseller, it's right in the doorway of all the big bookstores. And the books that matter, and there's only a handful of them, but the books that matter are 40 rows back, and there's 2 copies of each.
Wow.
And that's the media, that's the book business, the publishing business. Gerald Posner's book was published by Random House, and he dedicated it to Robert Loomis, who was an intelligence asset as far back as intelligence assets went. And that's no coincidence.
Well, here's the thing, Walt. Do you see society today mimicking? I can't really say society because, as I told you, what I think about society. Basically, our government basically capitalizing off what happened basically 50 years ago.
Sure, but not just that. You have 2 prevalent fears right now. You have people living paycheck to paycheck, and you have
welfare.
Well, you have the ism. We had to deal with fascism. Then we had to deal with the evil communism. And one thing that comes through very clear in the documentation, in the chronology I did, is that the Russians, the Soviets, were never really a military threat to the United States. Never. It was a show. And it was a show that, again, profited military contractors in the United States like you can't believe. Now we have terrorism. We don't know what they look like. They're not wearing Wehrmacht uniforms. They're not wearing red stars on their shoulders. They're sneaky little guys that will blow up anything to make America dangerous. So what happens? Within 9 days of 9/11, there's a 600-page piece of legislation on everybody's desk, which would take 3 years to write under normal circumstances. Nobody read it, and they passed it.
Let me ask you your opinion, because, back in the 60s and, the 50s, I mean, we had World War I, World War II, we had all that stuff going on, and it was just right after another. So there were so many things going on, but do you, and that was a scary time, but do you think that society today is scarier than what it was? I mean, do you think we're actually going deeper into the rabbit hole?
No, it's a different kind of perception. Now they've had nonstop worries beginning 9/11, and then from 2007 on, you can call it a Great Recession or a mild depression. When that happened, a lot of people lost jobs, a lot of people lost careers, a lot of people lost pensions, and that's not the same as worrying about Hitler. That's worrying about what's in your refrigerator, and that's critical. Sure, we saved Europe in World War I just by showing up. We saved a good part of Europe and a good part of the Far East with our actions in World War II. And finally, we got the idea, hey, let's not send all the soldiers home.
Well,
since then, we've been a military state.
I call it a slowly confirmation on what they're doing to the world right now. And they are attacking the new generation. And there's only a little bit of us who knows what's right and our American freedom that's left. Pretty soon we're all going to die out, and all these little baby boomers are going to be running the country and be oblivious to what freedom looks like. And that's the scary part.
Well, I'm one of the baby boomers, but I think you're talking about the 1.5 generations behind me.
I'm talking about the iPhone baby boomers.
Yeah, right. Sure. And they're going to be clueless, but they're going to be led around by that group that I said we earlier. They're going to be led around by knowledgeable people who know how to get the stuff done. When the Patriot Act was repassed, one of the segments of it said the president does not have to release or make public the provisions of this act. So we live under a piece of legislation and we don't know what it says. And I told you when we spoke earlier, A lot of what the Assassination Records Review Board released in terms of documentation was taken back by the Bush administration and reclassified. If you have any of those documents, even though you got them legally, it's a felony under the Official Secrets Act. So if you contact the National Archives and say, what do I have to give back? What do I have to put in the fireplace? They're going to send you a letter saying, we can't tell you because it's classified. And that's the absurdity of the situation that we live in today, in a microcosm.
Here's the big question everybody wants to know. Out of your 32,000 pages and your hard work, what is your final thought? Even though it's not the concrete answer on what really happened, you by far, sir, have the best definition of what we can call an answer.
Well, it's a multi-part answer. Number one, there's still way too much documentation that we're not allowed to see. And much as 32,000 pages is a lot of stuff, it would have been 72,000 pages if I had had carte blanche for all the documentation. And if Lee Oswald did it all by himself, they shouldn't have put away one sheet of paper, much less rooms full. Because the initial, what they put behind closed doors was 357 cubic feet of stuff. And it would take 2 lifetimes to read that. But some people got to it quickly enough to say, don't let this stuff loose. That's one thing. The second thing is, the closer I got to it, even after warrant omission, is that the cover-up was massive. And it just touched every imaginable base. It was so incredibly well orchestrated that you can say, yeah, they could have killed the president, because if they did the assassination half as well as they did the cover-up, it would have, it succeeded. But there are loose ends. But at the end of the day, what came across most clear to me is that John Kennedy was going to become the man who ended the Cold War. And he was going to end the perceptions of the Cold War. He was going to make it clear there really never was the Cold War, in the sense of Russian bombs falling on our head. And the establishment could not accept either peace, that's not good for business, the end of the Cold War, because then we could be a society for the people.
Yeah, God forbid that happens.
That's not going to happen. Now we are a society for
the government.
Corporations.
Right.
United Corporate States of America, that's what we are.
And thirdly, ending the perception of the Cold War would be opening the door and saying, hey, Americans, you've been had. We built 1,400 ICBMs while John Kennedy was president, and the Russians built 12.
Very scary.
That's why the U-2 had to be shot down. That's one of the most major overlooked events. It's the front bookend of Kennedy's presidency. The U-2 threw us right back into confrontation with the Russians. Because the day that plane fell out of the sky, Khrushchev, May Day, had Red Square decked out with doves and peace signs. He and Eisenhower were going to sit down at a Paris summit and hammer out peace. And the CIA, which ran the U-2 program, and the military, which helped coordinate it, they killed the Paris summit and peace. And to save his own neck, Khrushchev had to turn into the monster that he became.
All right, we are about out of time. Tell everybody where they can get your books at.
Well, they can get the chronology either through Kindle, Nook, or, as you said, iTunes. If they want a CD of it, I still have a few of them, and they would write to me. Send me an email at letters KIAS as in Sam, JFK at AOL. If they want any of my books, they should just go on Amazon.com, type in War and Omission or Guns of Texas, Treachery in Dallas, and if it'll come up with a number of listings. Go to my listing, and you'll get a signed copy of it.
Do you have anything coming out in the near future?
No.
Okay.
No. Believe me.
But the truth, buddy.
After 32,000 pages, I got to decompress.
There you go.
Well,
I do. But let me just say, those 32,000 pages are not just informative; they're entertaining. It's like me speaking to you. It's analysis, and it's pointing out the folly of some of the things that have been done in wit and sarcasm, but also in a manner of feisty anger. It's not just droll data. I've had people tell me they read the 32,000 pages in 6 weeks.
Well,
and God bless them. God bless them.
Absolutely an informative book, and I suggest everybody out there go visit the website and pick this book up. If you are fascinated about the JFK, can you say conspiracy?
Even if you're just curious, this will set your reading schedule in motion.
All right, I'd like to thank you for being on the program.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much. It was very entertaining.
David
Thank you so
Gleason, thank you for your
It's always a
sports
pleasure to be here.
statistics. Jessica Johns for joining in on that show and ours. Rex Williams for sitting over there and just shaking your
enjoying
head.
the show.
I didn't get to ask about Marilyn Monroe, though. I'm pretty disappointed.
Oh, that's going to come up. And Lindsay, thanks for being the greatest co-host by my side. And Ryan for making sure we don't drop those F-bombs so the government don't try to hang us.
Oh, they're going to hang us anyway.
All right, remember to join us back here Wednesday and ask yourself, what are dreams? Because we're going to have J.M. DeBoard, who is a dream expert, talk about dreams and their interpretations. Are they your future? What are you seeing? Remember, everybody out there, stay safe for this Tuesday. See you right back here Wednesday. This is the Paranormal Beyond signing off.
Broadcasting live from the dark and cold dungeons deep beneath the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prepare yourselves to be taken away into another dimension as we now have control over your thoughts, fears, and perspective of the unexplained world you dare not speak of. With your hosts, Lindsay Knight and Michael Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the gates to the paranormal and beyond.
Broadcasting live from the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is the Paranormal and Beyond. When it comes to the biggest conspiracies of all time, there is absolutely no doubt that the JFK assassination echoes louder than the fatal gunshots which rang out on Daley Plaza in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1960.
You got physically attacked by a ghost.
Like I can tell you right now, I believe in the paranormal more than I believe in our government.
There are so many mysteries out there that are still yet to be explained.
You folks have some of your facts wrong, and you just keep talking about generalities.
With all due respect, sir, you have not brought anything to the table to prove us wrong.
This is the Paranormal and Beyond, and it's your show. Call us at 731-1230. Here again, Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight.
Woo! Welcome back to another brand new edition of the Paranormal and Beyond. But first, be sure to check us out at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, where you can link up to all the past shows by simply clicking on that archive link above. That's Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Ever want to be an actor? Well, here's your chance. Log on to HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Again, that's HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Special shout out to all those listening worldwide through the KLAV1230am.com website, and all of you driving 3 Although the government's final assessment and investigation would have us all believe that the lone gunman by the name of one Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, time, as well as new evidence, is leaning towards a condemning plot within our own government itself in the execution of our 35th president. In a moment, renowned author and former special agent of the Justice Department, Dr. Walt Brown, who is in fact one of the most knowledgeable figures when it comes to the investigations and details surrounding the JFK assassination, will be joining us on the program to give us an in-depth view on his extensive research into one of America's darkest days in our history. So get ready, because Dr. Walt Brown and the JFK assassination is all straight ahead when we turn right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
Your ticket to the unknown is at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at night.
One bullet. One gunman. One official conclusion that 75% of Americans say they don't believe.
The idea that a person could take this piece of junk and hit a moving target is ludicrous.
Was Oswald a solitary assassin or a well-played patsy?
I positively know nothing about this situation here.
New evidence of not just one assassination attempt, but three.
The Kennedy assassination remains, over 4 decades later, one of the great untold stories.
Tantalizing clues about a mafia hit, a government cover-up,
We have smoking gun documents from the CIA.
and a presidential scheme that allowed it to happen.
It's ParanormalResearchSociety.com. Nights with a K. ParanormalResearchSociety.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Nights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com, you're going to believe. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight, for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com.
Just because you've seen it in the news doesn't mean it's real.
So you're telling